Hey guys, this is another section of the complete menu. This time we're going to be doing Crash Bandicoot, all the gems. A couple of disclaimers for the entire run through, as you can see on the slides here, that getting the gems in Crash 1 it requires you to do a no-death run, because when you die past the checkpoint, it respawns all crates in a level, which means essentially you're going to have to do a no-hit run. And it's not as easy as in Crash 2 and 3 where you can attempt to do the clear gem every time you encounter a level. There are some instances where you'd have to backtrack because there is a colored gem that allows you to get the last couple boxes in a level, and that will allow you to get the clear gem of each level. Each level has a clear gem, and the colored gems are a replacement for the clear gems, but they require you to go to specific levels. There is about 6 colored gems in the entire game, and when you get all the crates in those 6 specific levels, you will get a colored gem, and that will allow you to get certain other clear gems because they will assist on the platforming, and they'll take you to alternate routes and so on. The first level of the game, N.Sanity Beach, you don't need a colored gem in order to get the clear gem. You can just go straight through. And it's a pretty straight shot, as you've been seeing on the screen right now, but there is a branching pathway right up here. The best idea is to go on the left, clear out everything, and make sure that you get 2 Aku Aku masks, and make sure that you don't get hit, obviously. And then there should be a 3rd Aku Aku mask right before the split. I'm actually going back now to get it, and that's what I was going to say. You should leave it behind so that you become invincible after you have only the right path to discover. And then pretty much the idea is to go invincible down the right fork in the road. Now, as we see that in action here, something I want to get into in general there. In the Japanese version, there are the Aku Aku masks. They give a hint, and these hints are, actually just want to go back to what's on screen, that you got to be invincible across that bridge. It's the easiest way. You could bounce on the boxes individually, but it would take longer, and that is, you do run fast enough to outrun the breaking of the crate, so you can just dash across that bridge invincible and you'll get all the boxes. I'm just doing a quick check to make sure I haven't missed anything. Now, in the Japanese version of the game, I haven't seen this in action for myself, but there are, when you break an Aku Aku mask, it gives you a hint. I'm not sure whether that's spoken dialogue or if it's just text that appears on the screen, but there is some interesting little tidbits recorded for some of the levels. Sometimes it gives you history about the level, or sometimes it'll give you techniques for upcoming bosses and so on. And for N.Sanity Beach, Aku Aku says that he is a magician who protects the island. He also says that brutal things are happening due to Cortex's scheme, and that's like the first thing that comes to mind is just that metalhead picture, as he says, brutal. But yeah, in this game, or at least in the Japanese version, it could be a mistranslation, but it says he's a magician, not a witch doctor, which we know him for this series as. So that's a little weird. So little facts like that give the game a bit more flavor, I reckon. And here we are in Boulders. So what the slide before said, you got to keep playing the levels until you get to Boulders, ignoring the clear gems, because they're not, you could attempt to get them, but you won't end up getting them. Either they require a clear gem or some other requirement. So the next possible level you can get a clear gem in is Boulders, because at this point we haven't encountered a colored gem yet. And if you follow this guide and do pretty much what I do. You should have the exact gems as you can see in the bottom right. And from what I'm getting from my notes here, Boulders was remade for Uncharted 4 in the sense of, I think there's a Crash game you can play where it simulates this level. So that's a nice little Easter egg. But Naughty Dog, it's expected. You know, they reference each other in each other's games. The third level, we've got to go to Hog Wild. And this is a straight shot. You just got to do this in one life as well. But the boxes are all here, straight in the way. The hitbox of the Warthog is a bit wider than what you would think, so to make the swerves easier, because it does take a lot of time for the Warthog to change direction again, try to go for the corner of the crate, like I did there. And there also can be a delay on the hit. I think in the other Warthog stage, I hit about 3 or 4 boxes and then maybe a couple seconds later the Wumpas start flowing through. So don't think you missed it until a couple seconds later, and if you don't see Wumpas going into your counter, then yeah, you probably missed it at that point. And going back to more Uncharted references in Uncharted 1, which, shameless plug, you can catch our playthrough of it on our channel. There's a plane called Hog Wild. I think it's Sully's plane, I'm not 100%. But yeah, they put the Hog Wild on the plane, and there's your little reference to Crash again. Alright, so the next possible level we can get a gem in is up the creek. This level, it's not so bad. I believe, I might be wrong, but I believe there's a complicated little thing you have to do with an exclamation box. But other than that, you can get this on your first try. The Aku Aku masks in the Japanese version, they warn you about Ripperoo and how he jumps around, and you gotta watch out for a pattern. But I would imagine, having played the game for the first time, a lot of people would be confused as to who Ripperoo even is. As you can see in the bottom left, there's a box counter, and in this I count the boxes that, the ones that break. I may in the earlier parts may count the exclamation boxes, but then I start to omit them, so these totals are not consistent with what would you find on, say, Bandipedia or any other Crash related sources. Okay, so here's the exclamation box. You gotta hit this, and actually the boxes that spawn are backwards, so you gotta go back across the lily pads. They do respawn, you just gotta wait out a bit. And you gotta hit the TNT first, and then either you can quickly bounce back, or you can miss it like I did, or do this weird complicated Z-axis jump. But head for the bottom of the trunk so that you can make it, but not too bad. You do have plenty of time to attempt to jump on the arrow box before the TNT explodes, so just position yourself properly and that shouldn't be a challenge, but you have to know that that is back there. If you hit the exclamation box and continue further on with the level, you're going to miss 2 boxes. I believe that's happened to me a couple times. But in terms of the river levels, they have a very nice ambient track. One of my favorites after the machinery levels with the music. But I heard that read somewhere that Miyamoto was very impressed with the water graphics in Crash 1. I mean, I guess looking back on it now, it's not that amazing, but he was very impressed with what they could do, and I think that inspired him to experiment with it in a lot of games in the 64 era, the Nintendo 64. So, next available stage is Lost City. So, those little, the little slides I've been putting in between each level will kind of tell you what to do. They're kind of going a bit too fast for me to read them out, but I think that last one said we gotta fight Ripperoo, and Lost City is the next level. But we have not hit a colored gem yet. We might hit a colored gem in this part, and then once you get a colored gem, you start backtracking. So the idea is to play through the levels on the bare minimum if you can't get the gem for it. So the idea is to, because the way Crash 1 works is that there's a mini-map. There's a world map every time you finish a level, and you can actually only progress after you finish a certain level. You can go further and further down the map. It's a straight line. So you want to unlock the ability to do later levels by doing the earlier ones. So if you can't get a gem, just, you know, blaze through it and go on. And for the sake of this playthrough, I'm only showing my successful attempt, because I have died multiple times trying to get these gems, or I would say died, because one death would equal a failed run, because you would not be getting all the crates unless you decide to backtrack. You can actually backtrack and physically get the crates. So say you hit the 3rd checkpoint in a level and then died, you could backtrack all the way to the beginning, getting all the crates along the way, and then go back all the way to the 3rd checkpoint and continue the level on normal, but it has to be done on 1 life. Necessarily dying doesn't ruin your chances, it just makes it significantly harder. And while the camera doesn't lock and you can backtrack in every level, except I believe the chase levels, it makes it much harder. You'd rather do it in one try going forward so you can see what's going on all the time. Here we go, this is a favourite jump of mine. So what we did in upstream, but a little harder because there's a fire. If you have an Aku Aku, you can take the hit. But you don't have to backtrack for this one, this is further up ahead. The Japanese hint says that this place is abandoned, so yet there's someone attending to the fires and the traps, so you would think this would be an extension of the gate levels that we'll see later on. I believe this is our first Cortex level? No, actually, it was our first bonus level. So I just showed that off because I died pretty much quickly. The bonus levels do not count for any crates. So you can bail at a bonus level and it'll be alright. The crates are the only ones in the levels. Those are the ones that matter. The Embryo and the Cortex tokens, the crates in there, they don't count. They do count in the N.Sanity trilogy, but we're not doing that now, are we? Because that would be hip and trending. You know, that's not the way we do things here at the Spud Duds. But yeah, Aku Haku's hint says that the city's abandoned, but it's not lively to be abandoned. I mean, obviously it's not abandoned by creatures, but by people. And I get the strange feeling that it's connected to the gate levels, being of, you know, it's a tribesman ruins. They used to inhabit this place at one point and not anymore, but there must be someone, you know, tending to the fires and the traps. But it's not something you think about too much. I mean, I'm not even sure how they have the technology to have giant stone slabs move in and out. It's a video game. It just does it. Now here we go. That's me skipping over the bonus rounds, so I'll be doing that throughout the entire game. I won't be showing any of the bonus rounds because we have attempted them on the initial run, and in terms of a 100% guide, they're actually not necessary. I mean, I could show them off, but it would pad out the... It would just be padding out the video. So I'm not sure what that other bonus room I was in, but it might have been an embryo bonus room, because I am definitely showing off the Cortex bonus rooms because they are necessary to get keys. And there are 2 keys to get in this game when you finish a Cortex bonus level, and they give you 2 extra levels which have a clear gem in them each, so it's necessary for the 100% run. And here we have our first color gem. We get a green gem for doing Lost City. So now we gotta backtrack to Jungle Rollers. So this is our first instance of a color gem being useful. So this is, I believe, the 2nd level of the game. So obviously in my initial recording I just blazed past this, not really paying attention to anything, but now we gotta go through. And the reason I halted there was because TNT barrels are programmed a little weird in this game. They have to be near you for a certain limit for them to count as exploding. Otherwise they will, you'll hear the 3, 2, 1 beeping sound, but then it will stay intact. Or either that or it just detonates on its own. Yeah, actually I believe that's the thing. You gotta keep the TNT near enough so that it blows up the other regular crates around it normally. Otherwise it'll just detonate itself. I think there's an example of this in this level, but I'm not 100% on that. But for the most part, keep the TNTs on screen, otherwise they'll work like as if you'd broken a single crate. And these are the 3 boxes you need. If you did this level, you would not be able to get these 3 boxes unless you knew how to jump on the edges like I'm momentarily doing that. If you knew how to work that and climb your way up, it would be possible. It would take a lot of time. But there's those little wooden supports are solid enough for you to stand on them. And I think if you keep running against up the wall, you will still hold on to it. So that would be how you'd get that gem early. I think we're in the home stretch here. Yep. So after you get a clear gem that a color gem allows you to get, if there's no other requirements for it, we head back to where we left off and keep going. So now we're going to Temple Ruins, which I believe is our next available level to get a clear gem. This one doesn't require a color gem of any kind. I believe this might be the first instance of the Cortex token, we'll see. But we'll just have to wait for later in the video, so... Because there is a very important little thing that I think most players of Crash 1 will know, but just to point out all the same. You gotta be very cautious of where you spin those snakes. Because when you spin away an enemy in Crash 1, and I think 2 and 3, they are still physical items, even if they're spinning away and they no longer can hurt you. They're still physical items and they can break crates on their way into the horizon, or to the left or right of the screen. So that's gotta be something you gotta be careful about, especially if you don't want to break a crate a certain way. So if I spin that spider straight ahead, it could have broken those 2 crates there, which would have been convenient. But the angle you approach the enemy also matters as well. Definitely do, even though I'm listening to this on mute, definitely do dig the music. Actually, yeah, no. Headphones aren't working right now. I definitely do dig the temple ruin musics as well. A lot of ambient tracks in Crash. It's not exactly... It's like, if you've got the temple levels, it's a little quiet. If you've got the upstream levels, it's a bit... it sounds like running water and stuff like that. It's a very nice touch. I believe Aku Aku hints about this. If you see a Wampa floating like that over an abyss, it's usually a sign that it'll lead you into, you know, a little bonus area. Something will materialize under your feet, and that'll get you to where you need to go for a small little bonus like this one. You definitely can't see that on the approach. It's too far out to the left. But yeah. Yeah, that's exactly the hint Aku Aku gives in the Japanese version. Also in the Japanese version says actually no bonus rounds of any sort, I believe. Oh, actually, scratch that. There's no bonus round in this level, in this version of the game, the PAL version. But in the Japanese ones, there is a bonus level. Not much to write home about, but it's there. It gives you kind of a checkpoint. The last Torna token you get is, I believe it's a checkpoint. There's a simple trick with these columns. Just try to keep your jump straight. So let the columns line up with each other, then jump straight ahead. I reckon that's the easiest way, especially if you're using a D-pad to play Crash 1, which I think, for the most part, you have no choice but to. But after these Crusher segments, we're pretty much home free, and that's... I believe this is the last last level of this part. So we got our first 7 gems this part, and I'll see you guys for the second part of the complete menu of Crash 1. See ya.